Quite a few of you have been asking me to cover the Infested Sonic comic created by Flighty Alrighty on Comic Fury and Tumblr. And I have to admit that I was actually blown away by this infection AU. And part of the reason for it is the quality of the artwork, but also because the author described it as been a mix between 28 Days Later, which is in like my top 3 favorite horror movies of all time, and the comic also apparently grabs inspiration from the Body Snatcher movies. And while they are fairly old now, they did a great job back in the day as showcasing like body horror and also using psychological horror to really freak people out. So I'm excited to see how she implements that in her comic. Now, this comic starts off with Shadow floating through space, and it looks like he and Sonic were fighting against Eggman. And while the two of them are falling, we see Shadow have a bit of a flashback to Maria. And he says, "This is what you wanted, right? This is my promise I made to you." And for those of you that may be confused by this, Maria, or aka Maria Robotnik, was one of Shadow's best friends. And she was actually very sick as well, and she ended up passing away. But she was very important to Shadow, and probably the main reason that Shadow ended up becoming like a heroic character. He basically made a promise to her that he would do his best to protect the world. Now after that, we get this image of Shadow screaming, and we see a few words pop up in the background. And I'll put them on the screen here because I probably can't pronounce them. Like this one might be Gar, then Shore, Zoom, Dita, Shore. And I typed all this into Google Translate and came up with nothing. But the creator has assured people that this does have significance, and like as the comic unfolds, we'll see what they actually mean in the future. Now after that, we see that some soldiers and Rouge have found Shadow laying on the ground. And then we hear Shadow reciting the words that we showed plastered on the screen. And I think the YouTuber named Slotharoth does a great job voice acting here, so I'm gonna play this.
It'll be okay. Sure, go. Just hold on.
Data. Sure. Zoom.
After that, they seem to scoop up Shadow and get him back to safety, although we don't get to see what happened to Sonic at this point. Now, after some time had passed, we see that Shadow is fully recovered, and he and Rouge have received a mission to check out some cave that was created when Sonic and Eggman fought recently. And the thing that stood out for me here is that whatever is in this cave is causing their technology to malfunction, which will be a bad look for Shadow, but may also mean that my boy Omega the GOAT probably won't be able to accompany the team. And this is confirmed as Shadow and Rouge are walking out, with Omega saying that he hopes they have no fun on their mission. But they are able to pacify the big guy by saying that there will be no fighting. And if you know anything about Omega, his mindset is very much,
I don't want peace. I want problems, always.
After that, we cut over to the cave, and the first thing that Shadow sees is that this cave has a bunch of paintings on the wall, and it looks like a bunch of humanoids worshiping like some type of giant bug. And the first theory that I had when looking at this is that this AU is definitely going to deal with some type of parasite mixed with like a hive mind type situation, meaning that anyone who is corrupted will likely answer to or / be forced to obey this queen bug here. Shadow also points out that this cave has been around for a long time, but it was buried until Sonic and Eggman caused that tremor, which revealed the location. So I am quite sure that there is going to be some BS hiding in these tunnels. Next, we see that Rouge and Shadow are walking through this cave, or I guess Rouge is kind of flying a bit, and having a bit of a dialogue. But the thing that stood out for me here is that they didn't bring any rope or a flashlight. And I found it kind of funny that Shadow expected Rouge to bring that stuff, as if he isn't the one that can't see in the dark or fly. And we soon see why this negligence causes him big time. But before that, we see that they find this room that has a honeycomb type ceiling. And while my knowledge of insects isn't great, this does kind of remind me of like a beehive or maybe like some type of wasp nest, but obviously on steroids. Like these things are huge. Now, as Shadow is walking off to explore more, we see that the floor cracks beneath him, and when he tries to use his shoes, he notices that they are no longer working, and he takes a nasty fall here, hitting his head. And while this may not be a significant point here, I want to point out that Rouge is kind of having a bit of a breakdown here, but honestly, I don't feel like she really did anything wrong. She isn't Shadow's keeper or his babysitter. He really should have come prepared, but I do understand why she is worried about her friend, obviously. Next, we see Shadow get up, and while he is stuttering and having a hard time walking, he seems to be somewhat okay. And as he's stumbling along, I notice this art on the ceiling, which is slightly different than one that we actually saw at the cave entrance. We see here that it looks like these pink insects are attacking this guy here, possibly trying to get to this figure in the middle. And it also looks like they have these little humanoids here helping them with the assault. But we don't get to dwell on that for long, because right after that, we see that Shadow walks into a chamber that is housing this giant insect-like creature, and when it sees Shadow, it bursts open and sends out a bunch of little smaller insects. And at least one of them finds its way into Shadow's leg. and I can only imagine that the other insects have found their way out into the world. After that, we get a bit of a call back to the beginning of the comic, with Shadow saying that he is falling again. In the next scene, we see that Shadow is recovering in a hospital with Rouge looking over him. And in all honesty, I think this is the most I've seen Shadow get knocked out in a while. But his recovery actually went really well, and he immediately wants to get out of bed. But what I find interesting is that when Rouge is trying to tell him what happened, he seemed to not remember. And even worse, he lashes out at her. And while Shadow is kind of a jerk normally, he's never truly been like a cruel or a mean character, especially to his friends. You can argue that when it comes to villains, he might be a little more cutthroat than the other characters, but still, he's never been cruel. So for me, this seems very much out of character. We also learn that Rouge is hiding something from Shadow, and at first it seems like it has something to do with the black arms. And for those of you that may not be familiar with this lore, Shadow was designed to be like a hybrid of the black arms, which are basically a group of creatures created by a character named Black Doom. And I think that the reason Shadow is freaking out is because they are all supposed to be dead, but also they were like hive mind type creatures. So Shadow may be thinking that his mind is being compromised. And while his mind very well may be compromised, I think it has more to do with the parasite that crawls into his leg meat. Next, we see after a bit of back and forth, Rouge finally admits that she needs to trust Shadow, and she reveals the secret she was hiding, which was the fact that they didn't think Shadow was going to survive, because by the time they found him, he was in terrible shape, and we saw the way that he was kind of bleeding out there, like head wounds are no joke. She also revealed that they found some large dead creature in there with him, which obviously was the insect. And we know that the body burst open and released all those parasites into the world. But I think the most important thing was that she made sense of the painting for us. Apparently, this person right here is the Black Doom, and all his minions are around him. And the pink creatures here are the creatures that we found in here, aka that giant insect. And it almost seems like this is a prophecy of types, like these insects are always meant to go after the Black Arms or the Black Doom. We also get another glimpse into Shadow's temper flaring up, showing us that his personality is definitely a bit off after coming back from that cave.
Black Doom is dead, however. He's nothing to concern yourself about. And even if he was somehow still alive, I would simply snuff out his pathetic life once and for all.
Hey, Shadow?
The last major thing that we see in this chapter is that Rouge starts to repeat the words that Shadow was speaking when they found him knocked out. But once she starts to talk, we see that Shadow seems to clock out, almost as if he's in a trance. And eventually, he just blacks out. But as this portion of the comic ends, we see that his hand is completely covered in blood. And while I would like to believe that that isn't Rouge's blood, I think that would be naive. Now, at the start of chapter 2, we see that Shadow is looking up at the sky, still in a daze. But then he snaps out and immediately calls for Rouge, all but confirming that she is likely no longer amongst the living. And then we hear something moving around in the woods and get this gruesome scene with Sonic.
Hey, Shadow. Long time no see.
And a lot of people are trying to cope and say that Sonic turned red because of the virus, but I'm here to shatter that illusion. All this blood right here is definitely blood, and judging by how Sonic says he was just with Tails, I'm assuming that at least some of it is Tails. It seems like he may be infected just like Shadow, and he had his own blackout where he then went on a bit of a rampage. And unlike Shadow, Sonic seems to be in denial here, believing that Tails is still alive and that he needs to go find him. But luckily, Shadow is here to actually ground him a little bit, letting him know that he is covered in his little buddy. After that, we see some members of the Guardian unit pull up, and they are pretty much confirming that Shadow has done some serious damage, but also that they never trusted him, and they think that he may be like a sleeper agent of the Black Arms. And surprisingly, Shadow is willing to give himself up without a fight. And with these handcuffs on, he can't tap into his chaos energy, which means that he is very vulnerable right now. And this is pretty much the only thing that keeps Sonic from just running away. Well, and the fact that the soldiers threaten to shoot Shadow if he does. So while Sonic does surrender himself alongside Shadow, he's still very much in denial about the fact that he is covered in Tails' guts until he actually sees his reflection here. And then he immediately begins to freak out. But then he goes like completely still, his eyes get red and they almost look like they're like robotic, and his body is super slack. And this worries Shadow, obviously, so he calls to have Sonic knocked out, but in a split second, our boy is back, and he seems to have no idea where he is or what he's done up to this point. After this, we get some information from the soldiers, and it sounds like Sonic may have done more than just take out Tails, and apparently Shadow also went on a rampage in the med bay, which may imply that Rouge wasn't the only victim. And in the next panel, they said that they thought Sonic was the let the bad guy live type, but they guessed they were wrong. And I'm thinking that this means that Sonic has either taken out Eggman or more likely some lesser villain while he was on his rampage. So as of right now, I think that Sonic and Shadow have both had their minds hijacked by that parasite, and when they hear those alien words from the beginning of the comic, it seems like that activates them and sends them into a murderous rage. And while it is possible that Eggman has been taken out, I think that he's still alive actually. With Tails being confirmed as dead, I think that Eggman will be the only person left who is smart enough to really help figure out and actually stop the spread of this virus. And I guess I really shouldn't call it a virus because it's more like an infestation. But with that being said, I also wouldn't be surprised if I see him pair up with somebody like Knuckles, considering that he is one of the few people that can go toe to toe with Sonic and Shadow. But that is just my theory for now. I really enjoyed this comic. Make sure to go ahead and support Flighty Alrighty. I'll put all her links down in the description, and go ahead and read the next part of the comic. I've already taken a little bit of a look at it and it is really good. Let me know if you want me to continue this comic in the future, because I'm pretty sure that there's going to be another update pretty soon. Go ahead and check out this video next, and we'll see you tomorrow with another one. Peace, peace.